She married the cowboy to protect her reputation. He protected her heart. Instead, Emily Carter had always lived a quiet, ordinary life in the small town of Willow Creek. Her days were predictable, filled with familiar routines that offered comfort and security. She helped her father run the town's general store, arranging shelves, taking care of the accounts, and serving the customers who had known her family for generations. Emily liked the simplicity of her life. She liked knowing that every corner of the town was familiar, that she could walk down Main Street and wave at people who had known her since she was a little girl. She liked that her life had structure, that she could depend on things being steady. But little did she know that her ordinary life was about to change in a way she never imagined. One crisp autumn morning, Emily was finishing up her shift at the store when Mr. Lawson, a businessman from the neighboring town, came in. He was well-dressed, polite, and seemed friendly enough, but Emily had always kept her interactions with strangers brief and professional. On this day, Mr. Lawson wanted to discuss a potential business partnership with her father's store. He was asking questions, looking over ledgers, and offering suggestions. Emily had been helping her father for years, and she knew the store better than anyone. She answered his questions, gave her opinions, and tried her best to be helpful. Everything seemed normal, and Emily thought the meeting had gone well. But later that evening, something happened that changed everything. Emily had stayed late to help her father organize the storage room. Mr. Lawson had come back for some forgotten documents, and they had spoken briefly in the quiet of the empty store. Nothing unusual, nothing inappropriate. But a passerby happened to see them together and reported it to the town. The next day, whispers began. The day after, the whispers grew louder. By the end of the week, Emily's name was being spoken with suspicion wherever she went. People she had known since childhood avoided her in the street. Even customers at the store looked at her differently, their eyes filled with doubt or judgment. The innocent meeting that had been nothing more than business had been twisted into a story in which Emily was the villain. Emily felt her stomach twist every time she heard someone mention her name in passing. She tried to tell herself that she did not care about gossip, that she knew her own truth, and that eventually people would understand. But Willow Creek was a small town where stories traveled faster than facts, and unfortunately for Emily, the story had already grown wings. Even her closest friends began to pull away, unsure of what to believe. Emily's father was worried too. His store had always relied on community trust, and he could see customers hesitating, questioning, or simply choosing not to enter. Emily's heart ached as she watched her father's worry deepen, and she realized that the problem was bigger than just hurt feelings. It could affect her family's livelihood. One evening, Emily sat alone in her room, staring out at the fading sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, but she could hardly enjoy its beauty. She thought about the life she had known, the simple pleasures she had taken for granted, and the people who had always been her world. And she felt a growing fear, a creeping anxiety that she could not escape. She was scared of what the town thought of her. She was scared of losing her father's trust. She was scared that the life she had built so carefully might be shattered by a single misunderstanding. It was in this moment of desperation that she met Jake Dawson. Jake was a cowboy who lived on a ranch just outside Willow Creek. He was known for being quiet, hardworking, and honest. He had lived in the area his entire life and had a reputation for being dependable. People often thought of him as rough or unpolished because of his lifestyle, but those who truly knew him respected his strength, his kindness, and his integrity. Jake had noticed Emily over the years. He had seen her helping her father at the store, walking through town with a smile, always polite, always diligent. He admired her from afar, never daring to interfere in her life, but he could not help noticing the sudden change in her situation. When Jake heard about the rumors, he felt a sense of protectiveness he could not ignore. He knew the town could be harsh, and he knew that Emily was innocent. One afternoon, he visited the store under the pretense of buying supplies, but his true purpose was to speak with her. Emily recognized him immediately. He was calm, steady, and his presence seemed to offer a quiet strength she had not realized she needed. "I can help you," Jake said simply. His voice was low, firm, and comforting at the same time. Emily looked at him, unsure what he meant. "I don't understand," she said. "I don't need help, I need people to stop talking about me." Jake nodded. "I know, and I can help with that. I can make the town stop talking, but it will take something big, something they can see and believe." Something that proves your story without anyone having to speak it. Emily frowned. What do you mean? She felt a mixture of curiosity and fear. The idea of involving someone else in her life, especially in such a personal way, was frightening. She had always been independent, always relied on herself. She did not want anyone else to step in, no matter how kind or trustworthy they seemed. I mean, Jake said carefully, that we make it official, that we get married. Emily blinked, stunned. Her mind raced. She had always thought of marriage as something sacred, something tied to love, trust, and lifelong commitment. She had never imagined that marriage could be used as a shield, a way to protect her reputation. The idea felt strange, almost impossible. But as she looked at Jake, at the sincerity in his eyes, at the quiet determination he carried, she realized that this could be the only way to save herself and her family from ruin. Married, she whispered. But we barely know each other. Jake nodded. I know. But the town doesn't need to know that. They only need to see that you're protected, that they cannot touch your name, that's all. After that, we can go back to our lives. No one will be hurt. No one will know it's just an arrangement. Emily was silent. Her mind was flooded with conflicting emotions. Fear, doubt, uncertainty, but also relief, hope, and gratitude. Here was someone willing to step in when she felt powerless. Here was someone offering her a lifeline in a town that seemed ready to drown her in gossip. She thought about her father's worried eyes, about the customers who no longer came to the store, about the friends who had turned away. And slowly, she began to understand that this marriage of convenience could save everything she cared about. After a long night of thinking, she made her decision. She would do it. She would accept Jake's offer. It was not for love, not yet. It was for survival, for protection, for dignity. And if it meant keeping her family's reputation intact, then she was willing to step into the unknown. The wedding was small and private. Only a few witnesses attended. Emily wore a simple dress, and Jake wore his everyday work clothes. There were no grand celebrations, no cheering crowds. The ceremony was brief, almost perfunctory, but its meaning was enormous. In that quiet moment, Emily realized that her life had changed forever. She was married now officially, and the town would have no reason to speak ill of her. The rumors would stop. The whispers would fade, and for the first time in weeks she felt a flicker of hope. But even as relief washed over her, Emily could not ignore a strange sense of uncertainty. She had married a man she barely knew, for reasons that were practical rather than emotional. She did not know what the future held, did not know how this arrangement would affect her heart, her feelings, or her life. And though Jake had offered protection, she could not help wondering what she had truly signed up for. Was this just a shield against the world? Or was it something more? Only time would tell. For now, she focused on the immediate future. She returned to her daily life, still helping her father at the store, still walking through town, still performing her usual tasks. But everything was different. People looked at her differently. The whispers had stopped, replaced by curious glances and quiet nods of approval. Emily felt the weight of their eyes, but for the first time in weeks, she did not feel alone. She had Jake, a steady presence, a protector, a partner in this strange, unplanned marriage. And though she could not yet see it, this marriage of convenience was the first step toward something far greater, a journey that would change her life in ways she had never imagined. Emily had never imagined living on a ranch. The Dawson Ranch was vast, stretching for miles in every direction. Fields of golden grass waved gently in the wind, and the hills in the distance seemed to touch the sky. The air smelled different here, fresher, cleaner, with a faint scent of hay and earth. The house itself was simple, sturdy, and practical. It was nothing like the warm, cozy home she had grown up in with her father. Yet there was a comfort in its quietness, a peacefulness she could feel in her bones. Still, the first few days were difficult. Emily had lived in the town all her life, surrounded by the noise of people, the chatter of the market, the familiar routines of the store. Here there was silence. She woke to the crow of roosters and the soft lowing of cows, and at night, the only sounds were the wind through the fields and the distant call of an owl. She had always thought she loved peace, but now it felt heavy, almost overwhelming. She missed the familiarity of her old life, the simple human contact of running the store, the easy conversations with townsfolk. She felt a pang of loneliness even though Jake was nearby. Jake, for his part, respected her space. He made no demands. He did not try to control her or push her into doing things she was uncomfortable with. He continued his work on the ranch, tending to the animals, fixing fences, and working the land. Emily watched him from a distance, often amazed by his strength and precision. He moved with ease, yet every movement seemed purposeful, as if every action had meaning. She had never seen anyone work so calmly, so efficiently, and it made her curious. At first, their conversations were brief and practical. They discussed chores, meals, and the needs of the ranch. Jake would explain how to feed the animals, how to mend broken fences, or how to prepare certain tasks for the day. Emily listened carefully, sometimes stumbling over the unfamiliar language of ranch life, sometimes fumbling with tools or equipment she had never used before. She laughed at herself often, and Jake would chuckle softly in response, but never in a mocking way. There was patience in him that made her feel safe. Living together meant sharing routines and adjusting to each other's habits. Emily noticed the little things about Jake, the way he always made his bed in the morning, carefully smoothing the covers. The way he left the doors open for the animals, yet always checked to make sure everything was safe. The way he seemed to know exactly what to do, even when the work was exhausting. She noticed how his hands were calloused but gentle, how his eyes softened when he spoke to the animals, and how quiet he could be even when the world around him was loud. Jake, in turn, noticed Emily. He noticed her determination, her curiosity, her willingness to try despite the difficulty. He watched her struggle to ride a horse for the first time, wobbling and clinging tightly to the saddle, but refusing to give up. He saw her patience as she learned to milk the cows, despite the occasional messy mishap. He noticed the way she quietly observed the ranch, taking in every detail, every corner, every animal, trying to understand it all. He admired her spirit, her resilience, and the kindness she carried, even in a world that had judged her unfairly. One evening, a storm rolled in from the hills. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the wind began to howl. Emily had never experienced a storm like this before. The power went out and the house plunged into darkness. For a moment she felt a rush of fear. She had never been alone in such a situation, but Jake was there. He lit candles and moved calmly through the house, showing her how to prepare for the night. They sat together at the kitchen table, the flickering candlelight casting shadows on the walls, and for the first time they spoke beyond chores and routines. They talked about their pasts, about their fears, and about dreams they had never shared with anyone. Emily spoke quietly about her love for the store, her father, and her life in town. She admitted how lonely she had felt lately, how much the rumors had hurt, and how scared she had been of losing everything she cared about. Jake listened, truly listened, without judgment, without interruption. He shared small pieces of his own life, how he had grown up on the ranch, how he learned to work hard, how he had always respected people and animals alike. In the warmth of the candlelight, Emily felt a strange sense of closeness she had not expected. Jake was not just her protector anymore. He was someone she could confide in, someone who understood her without needing explanations. And Jake, who had always been quiet and reserved, felt a growing respect and admiration for Emily. He had offered to protect her reputation, but now he found himself wanting to protect her in ways that went beyond words. He wanted to see her happy, safe, and at peace. Days turned into weeks, and Emily began to adjust to life on the ranch. She learned to ride without fear, to care for the animals, and to help with daily chores. She discovered a strength within herself that she had never known before. The work was hard, exhausting at times, but it gave her a sense of accomplishment she had never felt in the quiet routines of the store. She started to enjoy the long walks through the fields, the sound of the wind, and the beauty of the sunsets. She realized that the world outside town could be just as comforting and familiar in its own way as the streets she had known all her life. And yet, even as she adapted, she could not ignore the growing curiosity and feelings she had toward Jake. She found herself noticing the way he smiled when he was pleased, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way he treated the ranch with care and respect. She caught herself thinking about him when he was not around, wondering what he was doing, hoping he was safe. She felt a warmth in her chest she had not felt before, and though she tried to deny it, she knew that this strange, unplanned marriage was starting to mean more to her than she had intended. Jake felt it too. He had entered this arrangement thinking it was just about protection, just about helping Emily escape the judgment of the town. But now, he found himself caring for her in ways he had never expected. He wanted to see her smile, wanted to see her laugh without worry, wanted to be there when she struggled. He realized that the simple, quiet life they shared was no longer just about convenience. It was about companionship, trust, and an unexpected bond that was growing stronger each day. One chilly evening, as they finished mending a broken fence together, Emily lost her balance and almost fell. Jake caught her instantly, holding her steady in his strong arms. For a moment, they looked into each other's eyes, and the world around them seemed to disappear. The breeze, the animals, the distant hills, nothing mattered except the closeness they felt in that instant. Emily's heart raced, and she felt a strange mixture of fear, excitement, and something else she could not name. Jake, too, felt a pull he could not ignore, a warmth that went beyond friendship or duty. After that day, they became more aware of each other's presence. Small gestures, a gentle touch on the shoulder, a shared laugh, a look that lingered a little longer than necessary, began to build a quiet intimacy. They did not speak about it directly, and they did not rush. But the bond between them deepened, slowly, naturally, in the rhythms of daily life on the ranch. Emily began to feel at home in a way she had never imagined possible. The ranch was no longer just a place of exile from the town's judgment. It was a place of learning, growth, and self-discovery. And Jake, who had been a distant figure when they first arrived, was becoming someone she relied on not just for protection, but for companionship, guidance, and even comfort. And yet, the awareness of what was growing between them brought both excitement and fear. Emily was careful with her heart, remembering that their marriage had begun as a shield, not a romance. She did not want to make a mistake, to misread signals, or to give herself away too quickly. Jake felt the same. He had offered her protection without asking for anything in return, and he did not want to ruin the trust they had built by letting emotions move too fast. Still, life on the ranch continued, and with it, the quiet moments that allowed them to know each other deeply. They shared meals, worked together in the fields, and learned each other's routines. They talked late into the night by the fireplace, laughed at small mishaps, and comforted each other during storms or accidents. In every moment, their respect for one another grew, as did a deep, unspoken affection. Emily began to realize that she was no longer just surviving in this arrangement. She was thriving. She was learning, growing, and feeling emotions she had never known before. And though she tried to ignore it at times, she could not deny that her feelings for Jake were changing. He was no longer just a protector of her reputation. He was someone she was beginning to trust with her heart, someone she admired, someone she cared for deeply. Jake, too, began to understand that what had started as a marriage of convenience was transforming into something far more meaningful. He had entered this arrangement with a sense of duty, but now he felt a connection he could not ignore. Emily had become essential to his life. He wanted to see her happy, to see her safe, to see her smile freely. And he realized that protecting her reputation had become the first step toward protecting her heart as well, even if neither of them were ready to admit it out loud. Life on the Dawson Ranch had become a rhythm for Emily. The days were long and full of hard work, yet they carried a sense of purpose that she had never experienced before. She woke early with the sun, learning to feed the animals, mend fences, and help with the harvest. Each task was challenging, but she faced them with determination. Over time, Emily noticed that she was not just surviving, she was growing stronger, more confident, and more capable. Her hands, once soft from years behind the store counter, were now calloused and steady. Her steps were surer, her decisions firmer, and her spirit braver. Jake watched her quietly, admiring the way she adapted. He saw her courage in the face of tasks that would challenge even someone who had grown up on a ranch. He saw her patience as she learned to ride horses, guide cows, and manage the chores. Her laughter, though rare at first, now came more easily, and he treasured the moments when she smiled at small successes or made a joke about her own mistakes. It amazed him how someone so gentle could also be so resilient. The town of Willow Creek had begun to settle into the idea of Emily and Jake's marriage. The whispers that had once followed her like shadows had faded. People in town now looked at her with acceptance, even respect. They saw a woman who had been brave enough to rise above scandal, who had taken control of her situation with dignity. Emily, however, knew that the real change had happened not in the town's opinion of her, but in herself. She felt a sense of pride, a quiet joy in knowing that she was capable, strong, and worthy. Despite the calm that had settled in, Emily could not ignore the growing connection she felt with Jake. It was subtle at first, The way he offered her a hand when she climbed onto a horse, the way he left her favorite cup by her plate, the quiet smiles they exchanged across a field. But over time, these gestures grew heavier with meaning. Emily began to notice his eyes, the way they softened when he looked at her, the way he seemed to understand her without words. She felt a warmth in her chest that she could not explain, a sense of closeness that went beyond companionship. Jake, too, felt the pull of their growing bond. He had entered this arrangement with a sense of duty, wanting to protect Emily from the harsh judgment of their town. He had never expected to feel this level of care, this depth of attachment. He found himself thinking of her when she was not around, worrying if she was safe, hoping she was happy. The quiet moments they shared, sitting by the fire, walking through the fields, laughing over spilled feed or broken fences, had become the highlights of his days. He realized that his feelings for her were no longer just protective. They were personal, intimate, and deeply sincere. One afternoon, Emily was helping Jake mend a fence along the edge of the pasture. The sun was high, casting golden light over the rolling hills, and the air was warm and fragrant with the scent of grass and earth. Emily struggled to hammer a post into the ground, the wood resisting her every effort. Jake stepped beside her, offering guidance without taking over. "Lean into it," he said gently. "Use your body weight, not just your strength. You've got this." Emily took a deep breath and followed his advice. The post went in with a satisfying thud. She smiled, wiping sweat from her brow. Jake grinned at her success, pride shining in his eyes. For a moment the world seemed to pause, and they shared a glance that spoke volumes. No words were needed. In that instant, Emily felt seen, understood, and appreciated in a way she had never felt before. And Jake, watching her laugh with relief and triumph, felt a warmth that went far beyond pride in a job well done. Their evenings were often spent in quiet companionship. They would sit on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the distant hills, sharing simple meals and small talk. Sometimes they would talk about their pasts, the dreams they had once held, and the fears that had followed them into adulthood. Emily spoke of her life in Willow Creek, her father, and the store. She spoke of the gossip, the hurt, and the loneliness she had felt. Jake listened patiently, offering words of comfort when needed, never interrupting, never judging. Jake shared pieces of his own life as well. He spoke of his childhood on the ranch, the hard lessons he had learned, and the people who had shaped him. He admitted to Emily that he had always felt a sense of duty toward those he cared for, a desire to protect and support them in any way he could. Emily listened with growing admiration, realizing that Jake's strength was not just in his muscles or skill, but in his heart. He cared deeply, not for appearances or recognition, but simply because he could not help it. Over time, Emily began to feel a sense of safety she had never known before. She knew that Jake would not just protect her reputation in town, but also her heart. There was a gentleness in him that allowed her to be herself, to relax, and to trust him fully. She started to notice small details, the way he hummed softly when he worked, the way he paused to check on the animals even when tired, the way he offered her help without making her feel weak or incapable. One evening, a strong wind blew through the ranch, rattling windows and shaking doors. Emily was inside preparing dinner when a loud crash echoed from the barn. She froze, heart racing, and then heard Jake's voice calling her name. She rushed outside to see him steadying a fallen gate, sweat and dirt on his face, a look of determination in his eyes. Without thinking, she ran to help him. Together, they lifted the gate and secured it, their hands brushing, sending a spark of electricity through both of them. Afterward, they sat on the steps of the barn, catching their breath. The wind howled around them, but for a moment they were isolated from the world. Emily looked at Jake, and he looked at her, and neither spoke. The silence was heavy with meaning, a silent acknowledgement of the bond growing between them. Emily realized, with a mixture of surprise and fear, that she cared for him deeply. Jake, too, understood that his feelings were no longer just protective or friendly. They were real, profound, and undeniable. As weeks turned into months, their partnership strengthened. Emily became more confident in her abilities, more independent, yet more connected to Jake than ever before. They shared responsibilities on the ranch, celebrated small victories together, and faced challenges side by side. Every day they learned more about each other, the way Jake approached problems calmly, the way Emily approached tasks with careful thought, the way they complemented each other naturally. The bond between them grew stronger, not through grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but through quiet, consistent care. Emily learned that Jake would stay up late to make sure the animals were safe during storms. Jake learned that Emily's laughter could lighten even the heaviest of days. Together, they found a rhythm that was comforting, reliable, and deeply satisfying. Yet, even as their feelings grew, both were cautious. They remembered that their marriage had begun as an arrangement, a protection, not a romance. They did not rush, did not force anything, and did not allow themselves to take the other for granted. They knew that trust and understanding had to come first, and that love, if it blossomed, would grow naturally from their shared experiences. Emily began to feel a sense of belonging she had never known. She belonged not only on the ranch, but with Jake. She realized that protection could take many forms, not just shielding her reputation from the town, but offering support, patience, understanding, and care. Jake, in turn, discovered that love could be quiet, unassuming, and patient. It did not need to be rushed or declared in grand gestures. It could grow slowly, steadily, through shared work, shared laughter, and shared trust. And so life on the Dawson Ranch continued. The days were full, the nights peaceful, and the bond between Emily and Jake grew stronger with each passing moment. They were no longer just a woman and her protector. They were partners, companions, and slowly, silently, something deeper began to take root. Something neither had expected, but both had come to cherish. A love built on respect, patience, and quiet strength. The days on the Dawson Ranch had grown longer and warmer, and Emily could feel the change not only in the seasons but in her own heart. Life on the ranch had become her rhythm, her comfort, her reality. Every morning she woke to the sun rising over the hills. Every evening she fell asleep to the soft calls of the animals and the whisper of the wind through the fields. She had learned so much: how to ride horses properly, how to care for animals, how to mend fences and manage chores efficiently. But more importantly, she had learned about herself. She had learned that she was capable, strong, and worthy of love and respect. Jake had changed too, though perhaps in ways less visible to others. He had always been hardworking, patient, and kind, but now there was an ease in him, a softness that Emily could sense but no one else could see. He laughed more freely, smiled more often, and allowed himself to feel joy in small, everyday moments. His life, once quiet and solitary, was now shared, and though he did not say it aloud, he felt something for Emily that went beyond protection or duty. But even as their days flowed with comfort and quiet joy, a challenge arrived, one that could change everything. Emily received a letter in the mail from a company in the city. They were offering her a position she had once dreamed of, a meaningful job with opportunities for growth, recognition, and independence. It was the kind of opportunity she had always imagined when she thought of leaving Willow Creek, a chance to start a new life on her own terms. Emily's heart raced as she read the letter. She felt a mixture of excitement and fear. On one hand, this was everything she had worked for, everything she had dreamed about. On the other hand, it meant leaving the ranch, leaving Jake, leaving the life she had grown to love. She did not know how to reconcile her ambitions with the bond she had formed with Jake, nor did she know how he would react. When she showed Jake the letter, he looked at it quietly. He did not immediately speak, and Emily worried that he might be upset, that he might feel betrayed, or that he might ask her to stay. But after a moment, Jake spoke softly, carefully choosing his words. "This is an incredible opportunity," he said. "You've always wanted this, and I would never want to hold you back. You should take it." Emily felt a lump in her throat. His words were kind, generous, and selfless, but they also hurt. She realized that Jake's love for her was shown not through possession or demand, but through care, understanding, and sacrifice. He was willing to let her go if it meant her happiness. She admired him more than ever, yet it made her heart ache to think of leaving him behind. The days leading up to her possible departure were filled with quiet tension. Emily found herself walking the fields, staring at the hills, thinking about the life she had built and the life she might have. She tried to imagine the city, the job, the independence she had dreamed about for years. But every vision was shadowed by thoughts of Jake, his steady presence, his quiet strength, his unwavering kindness. She realized that she could not picture a life without him, not truly, not with the depth of feeling that had grown between them over the months. Jake noticed her hesitation. He understood without words that she was struggling with her choice. One evening, as the sun set and the sky blazed with shades of orange and pink, he took her hand. It was the first time he had reached for her in such a deliberate, intentional way. "Emily," he said softly, "whatever you choose, I will support you. But I need you to be honest with yourself. What do you truly want?" Emily looked into his eyes, searching for answers in their depth, feeling her heart pounding in her chest. She realized in that moment that the choice was not just about a job or a city or a dream she had once held. It was about love, about partnership, about the life she truly wanted to live. And the truth was clear. The life she wanted was here with Jake on this ranch, sharing every sunrise, every task, every quiet moment together. Tears filled her eyes as she spoke. "Jake, I can't leave. I don't want to leave. This ranch, this life, it's become mine. And you are part of it. I've never felt like this before. I've never felt safe, seen, and loved all at once. I can't imagine being anywhere else without you." Jake felt a surge of relief and happiness he had not expected to feel so intensely. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close, feeling the steady beat of her heart. "Emily," he said, "I've always wanted to protect you, to keep you safe, but I didn't realize I would also want to share my life with you. I don't want you to leave either. I want us to be real, not just for the town, not just for convenience, but for our hearts." From that day forward, their relationship shifted in a profound and beautiful way. The marriage that had begun as a shield against gossip became a true partnership. They shared responsibilities on the ranch, but now with deeper understanding and affection. Their work together was not just about chores and survival, but about building a life and nurturing love. Emily's laughter became more frequent, freer, filled with joy, and Jake's quiet smiles reflected his deepening happiness. Life on the ranch was not without its challenges. Weather could be harsh, animals could fall sick, and work was never-ending. Yet Emily and Jake faced each difficulty side by side. Every challenge strengthened their bond, every shared success deepened their connection. They learned to anticipate each other's needs, to support one another without words, and to cherish the quiet, simple moments that made their life together so rich. Emily found herself falling deeper in love with Jake every day. She loved the way he cared for the ranch, the animals, and her. She loved his patience, his quiet strength, and his unwavering loyalty. She loved how he made her feel safe, respected, and cherished without ever demanding anything in return. And Jake, in turn, loved Emily for her resilience, her courage, her warmth, and the joy she brought into his life. He realized that love was not always about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it was about patience, respect, and the quiet assurance that you were there for each other, no matter what. One night, under a sky filled with stars, Emily and Jake sat on the porch, holding hands and watching the world around them. The ranch was quiet, the animals asleep, the wind gentle and soothing. Emily rested her head on Jake's shoulder, feeling the steady strength of his presence. "I never thought this could happen," she whispered. "I never thought I could feel so happy, so at home, and so loved." Jake kissed the top of her head gently. "Neither did I," he replied. "I came here to protect you, Emily, but what I found was that protecting you meant protecting my heart too, and my heart belongs to you." In that moment, Emily understood fully what had grown between them. Their love was not sudden or dramatic. It had grown slowly, naturally, through shared work, shared laughter, shared care, and shared trust. It was quiet, steady, and enduring, a love built on respect, patience, and understanding. From then on, their marriage was no longer a formality or an arrangement. It was a choice, made every day with intention and care. They faced each sunrise together, worked through each challenge together, and celebrated each small victory together. Emily's reputation in Willow Creek had been protected, yes, but what mattered more now was that their hearts had been protected as well, nurtured, cherished, and bound together by something far more powerful than duty or convenience. The town noticed the change in them too. People saw a couple who were truly partners, who worked together, respected each other, and carried themselves with quiet dignity. The whispers that had once threatened to destroy Emily's life were long gone. In their place was admiration, respect, and a little envy at the strength of their bond. But Emily and Jake did not care what others thought. They had each other, and that was enough. Sometimes life offers unexpected paths. Sometimes protection leads to love, and caution leads to courage. Emily and Jake had begun their journey in a moment of desperation, shielding her from gossip and ruin. But in the process, they had discovered something more enduring, more beautiful, and more meaningful than either had anticipated. A love that was quiet but powerful, simple but profound, patient but unwavering. And in the golden light of each morning, on the quiet fields of the Dawson Ranch, they found joy, companionship, and love. A love that neither had planned, but both had come to treasure more than anything in the world.